Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and realized it's no longer the person you love? Like you just don't see them at all anymore? So that happened to me. What was it, like 10 years ago, I think? I had gotten into the last and final brawl with my dad. And I remember in the moment where he had hit me on my chest, and then he threw me on the bed, and I screamed out, "Okay, Pastor, okay, Pastor." And he stopped. And in that moment, like, I don't know who he became. I had experienced this before, but I had never mentally stopped and been like, what is this? What am I seeing? And for the next like 10 minutes, felt like an hour. He berated me. He called me names. He told me that I wasn't worth anything. He told me that the people that cared about me the most, and like the person I was the closest to at the time, my sister, he said that she was sick of me and no longer wanted to hear from me. And when I looked into his eyes, I no longer saw my father. Like, it was so weird because all I saw was like darkness. It was just black. And he was foaming at the mouth and like with rage. He was spitting. He was so angry at me as he was saying these things. And I remember being terrified. The hairs on my body were standing up. My heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. I felt trapped. It felt like the walls had closed in on me and it was just me and like so just heaviness and like wickedness. But I didn't have any of these words. I think that I had always heard about demon possession, and I had started reading the Bible a little bit for myself. And I remember seeing a lot of times Jesus is casting out spirits. A lot of his ministry was healing and casting out spirits. And I remember looking into his eyes, my father, and being like, what is that? Like, is this what they talk about in the Bible? Because no one up until this point in my life had ever said anything about demon possession. Like, it was a passing thought in sermons and in conversations. It was never anything that was articulated. And so to me, I was just like, is this what the Bible's talking about? Because I had never seen someone who was demon possessed. But when I looked into my dad's eyes, I was like, I think this is it. Like, I think this is what they talk about. And I had had many moments like that with my dad growing up, unfortunately. But that moment was the most eye-opening because I think for the first time I saw the separation of what is my father and his problems and his humanity and the other side. And it was the first time I acknowledged it and I really saw it for what it was. And it was terrifying. What it looked like and what it felt like, seeing that in my dad and growing up with someone like that. So in that moment when he was losing it, it wasn't the first time that my dad had we had gotten into an altercation like that. There was many times. And because like I was always at home alone, mostly with him because my siblings are all like, the closest one is 5 years older than me. So by the time I was in high school, she was going to college. And so it was mostly just me and him, and my mom worked a lot. So like when I got home from school, it was just me and him. And so there were many times where this happened, where we would get into these physical altercations where he, especially as I got older and I got more mouthy and more opinionated and I wanted to defend myself, we would get into these altercations where it would be him holding me up against a wall for a few minutes, screaming at me and losing his mind, or berating me or degrading me or just doing something to make me feel small. So this wasn't new. But I think maybe this was my first experience with the Holy Spirit, because previous to me coming home that summer, I had been in Argentina. And I think that that was really the beginning of God starting to work on me. God is so good because he starts working on us far before we are cognizant of what he's doing. But I think I had already started reading the Bible, spending more time with God, trying to like work through my mental health and all those things. And so when I came back home, I think I was a different person than when I had left home. I was maturing, but also I was spending more time with God. So maybe this was the first time I had the Holy Spirit and I had some reference for like what was happening. And so when we got into this fight, I remember after it, it's crazy because I think my dad and I both knew like, okay, this is the end for us. Like we can't be around each other. That's so sad. But it was the end of the summer. I was going back to college, and I remember I had left the house and he called me and was like, hey, come back to the house. I need the key. And at that time, I don't think that I was as aware as I am now. I didn't have the terminology and the verbiage for what I was feeling, but I remember being hurt by that, and I cried on the way home. And I think it's because in my heart, I knew, even though I didn't really understand, I knew that that was it for me going home. Like I was no longer welcome and I was no longer safe. And the months preceding that was the hardest time of my life. Well, I want to say the hardest time, but my life has been kind of hard in general. But it was, I say this from like a cognizant. I was more cognizant of what I was feeling and going through. And so I got back to school and man, everything fell apart. Everything fell apart. I started having nightmares. I could not sleep. I was having crazy demonic encounters, crying. Everything fell apart. If you have ever felt like everything is falling apart, man. And when I look back, I didn't know. I didn't understand what was happening. I was just trying to like stay afloat. And I like tried to reach out to school counselors. I think that was the first time that I was like, yeah, I need help because like, I don't think I'm processing this well. I had not always, but I had smoked before, but I think that was like the catalyst for a deeper addiction to smoking, because like I needed something to get me out of this reality, like get me out of where I was at. Yeah. So I think that started the journey of trying to understand, what did I just experience? What have I been experiencing for years? Like, who was that? What was that? And can God help me? So, if you're someone who has ever experienced that, where you look into someone's eyes that you love and you no longer see them, just know that you're not alone. Like, that isn't a singular experience. And I'll tell you more about my testimony.